Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from for our Reactor session. What in the Wordle? My name is Michael Watson, and I am the regional lead for the Asia Pacific for our Microsoft Reactor program. Today is my great pleasure to welcome Renee, again, our regional cloud advocate for the Sydney Reactor, to run you through this session, where I'm sure you'll get a lot out of her content and have some fun going along that path. I will now welcome in Renee. Hello, Renee.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to be here with you all today. So thank you all for joining me for the first episode of What in the Worldle. Really rolls off the tongue, that one. But yes, I'm Renee Noble, the Regional Cloud Advocate for Sydney and Australia, working out of the Reactor. I've got a background in Python, machine learning, and some web development, but I'm really excited to have you here to just talk about Python, really, and some, data science towards the end of this series. But it's going to be lots of fun. I've got heaps of cool Python tips for you. But yeah, if you like what you see here this week, there'll be more cool Python tips over the next few weeks. Other facts about me: I also run the Girls Programming Network. I teach at a school, and I love plants, cats, and just having a chaotic time of doing fun things like this. So it's my pleasure to start off the series with you today about what in the world. So let's start with what in the world are you talking about? So this might be a moment you had in sometime over the last couple of months where you went on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere and there were all these weird, colorful squares everywhere. And you went, what in the world is going on? And why has everyone got these squares? And where do I get some squares? Is also, do I need to have some squares? Is the first question you ask yourself. And you follow the link and you go, okay, cool. So soon enough, you start playing Wordle and you go, oh yeah, this is pretty fun. And you start to get into it. You might even get so far into it that you feel obliged to also join the people on the internet posting about their squares and share the joy with other people. And then soon enough after that, you might find yourself that you're in a group chat where all you do is post Wordle results for the day. Or not just Wordle results, you might be playing all of the different kinds of word-based and square-based games, really, that are out there now. Whether you're playing Nerdle, Quordle, Worldle, Octordle, there's a lot of different ones out there, and maybe you have the desire to make your own. So maybe that's why you're here today. Ultimately, you start playing, you get immersed in it, and you start reading about what's the best Wordle first word? What's your Wordle vibe? And you might even get into watching videos on the best opening word and the science behind Wordle. And that's how you end up here watching What in the Wordle with me. Or maybe you've never really played Wordle and you just really like Python or hanging out with me online, and that might be why you're here. So we will cover, what is Wordle a little bit, because we'll need to talk about what that is for our game as well. So for our 4 weeks of this series in March, Thursdays, this time every week, we'll be starting with Games Maker. We'll be making our own text-based version of Wordle in Python. Next week, we'll be starting with first words. So using data science to see how different words stack up against each other. What are the useful, bits, like using consonants, using vowels, using other, combinations, and how does that prepare us for our, second word? And we'll use some awesome tools, Jupyter Notebooks and Matplotlib. So if you want to learn some more data science stuff, come along to that. Week 3, we'll be building a Wordle solver, basically, jumping off from our first words. We can then use our first word to keep on going and finish off the game, fingers crossed. And finally, in week 4, we'll use data science to see if we can make our Wordle solver any better. We'll have a look at the different kinds of data that are out there that could potentially help us, or maybe they don't help. Well, we'll find out in the episode. So, starting off with today, we're going to go through what is Wordle and what rules do we need to know about Wordle to code it. We'll code our Wordle colorer, because that's like the essence of Wordle, is making these beautiful colors. We'll create a word list and an answer list, because maybe you want to create your own variation of the game. You don't want just the same one. You want one that's only about songs, or it's only about colors, or it's only about the scientific names for animals. I don't know. It could be anything you want, and you want to build one yourself. We'll then code up our game logic to get the game actually running. So 6 turns, or maybe you want 26 turns, whatever you want. And then we'll add some extra bonus features. We'll see how much time we have for them. And, make requests in the chat. We can add, some fun stuff that I learned for this project about updating the Python terminal screen. So you don't just have a long chunk of, different inputs and outputs. You can actually refresh it and make it look cool. Or maybe we'll make a keyboard so you actually know what letters you have used and haven't used. Because in making this, I just realized I couldn't remember what letters I'd used, even though they were right there on the screen. So making them is useful. Or maybe we'll implement a hard mode instead of just, playing on easy chill mode. Or normal mode, actually. So yeah, make requests in the chats. Also, I'd love to see all your comments in the chats. Please let me know where you're joining from. Have you played Wordle before? If you have, what's your go-to starting word? And how, what's your longest streak? So let's start off with the basics. How do you play Wordle? So you go to Wordle and you go, okay, there's a secret word and I don't know it. We're going to pretend that it's codes for the purposes of this exercise. I'm going to guess solid, and then it's going to color it in based on some rules. Colors the ones that are in the correct spot, the O, in green. It colors the ones that are in the word but in the incorrect spot, yellow. And anything that isn't in the word at all gets colored gray. But are there other rules we need to know about? Yes. Mostly comes down to repeated letters. So in this example, we have put in 2 O's and there's only 1 O in the word. So the first one gets colored green, the other one gets colored nothing. It gets colored gray. But if you haven't got one in the correct spot, once again, it gets colored yellow, but only the first one gets colored yellow as well. So that's important to note there as well. So if there's 1 O in codes, then we would color one thing in. If there is more, say we had the word tools with a double O and someone guessed something with 2 O's in the incorrect spots, they both get colored yellow. Someone guessed something that had 3 O's in it, however, only 2 of them would get colored. So those are our top tips. And also we always do coloring in the green first because we want to say, tick, that's in the right spot, and then move on to our yellow ones. Ultimately, you win the game if you get something that has all the green boxes colored in. So we're going to start off today by coding the Colorizer for our Wordle game. Because I figured that this is a great place to start because firstly, it's kind of an isolated chunk that we can test easily. So what we're going to do is build something up that takes in the correct answer and the guess, and then it's going to color it based on those. But it's super easy to test, and it really brings to life our Wordle game. So I really want to start with that before we get into the logic of creating our word list, because it's no fun to play Wordle unless there's the colors, I think. So what we're going to do is start by coloring all the greens, then color the yellows, then color the first n occurrences of a letter. So with the yellows, that's what we're just talking about. We can't color more yellows than there are in the word. And then we're going to color everything else gray. So let's start by making our function. Okay, cool. We're going to start by making a Python file. I'm going to call this game.py. Okay, I'm just going to start off by making something I'm going to call color result. So we're going to define a function, def color result. And I'm going to take in 2 inputs. I'm going to take in the guess and the answer. So that's the pieces of information we're going to need to do our coloring. We're going to make a note for this. So I'm using a doc string here, which is this nice triple quote thing here, to say what we're assuming about the stuff going into this, because we're not just going to take in any 2 words. We're not going to take in the word dog and the word caterpillar because they're not the same length. So, and we're also going to assume that everything's already lowercase. So words should be lowercase. Words are the same length, because we could say that words are 5 letters, but I'm making this a bit more general. So you might want to make a 6-letter Wordle word. So you might want to put in 6-letter words here. So we're just going to make it super general so it works for anything. And I'm going to start by checking how long the words are. I'm just going to check the first one because I've assumed they're the same length. So I'm going to len guess And then we've got the length, which we're going to need in a second. So I'm going to jump back to my little slides. Yeah, so we're going to use a list to store all of our data for this because we ultimately want to print out a string of the results. So you see all the squares on the internet, our string of squares. We're not actually going to use squares. We're going to use love hearts because I want to. And so we're going to start by setting up a list so we can put the correct colors into the list as we go along. We're not going to use a string because they're immutable, which means you can't edit and you change the things that are inside them. You can only delete or overwrite the whole string as a whole unit. So a list is going to let us do whatever part we're looking at when we do it. So we're going to set up a list and make each of the positions say none. None is just a type of data in Python. It's useful when you have nothing to put there, but you want the spot to be available. And then once we've got that, we're going to add the greens, then add the yellows, and finally add black love hearts. We didn't have grey love hearts for the ones that don't work, that aren't in the word. Okay, so I'm gonna show you two ways to do it. First way, the chill way. If you haven't done much Python, you might want to go with this one. We're going to start by making a list called output, which is empty currently, and then we're going to do for each spot, each letter. So maybe we've got 5-letter words. We're going to want to have 5 nones in here. If we have 10-letter words, we're going to want to have 10. So we're going to say for I in range, which is going to go through wordlen, and for each number from 0 to wordlen -1, we're going to put in none. So we're going to append none to our list. Output dot append, and we're going to add none. Cool. So that's one way to set that up. The way that I like to set things up, though, is with a list comprehension. So this way is the chill way, and you know what you're going to get, as we saw on the slide. But also you could do a nice list comprehension that would look, we don't want that one. That would look like this. So a list comprehension is a way of kind of doing that for loop inside of a list bracket. So we're just saying, hey, make a list for none for each, for I in range wordlen. So it's saying go through the numbers just as we did with the loop and make everything a none for that. You could say I, and you could count up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we're just going to put none. That's how many things we want in the list. So that's what we're going to do for our word list, for our output list. Okay, so next up, we're going to start with the green letters, and we're going to have to come back and add some more code in here later when we get up to the trickier yellow letter situation. But we're going to add in the green ones first. So nice comment, so we know what we're doing. So we're going to go for everything. We're going to go through the word one letter at a time. We're going to go through both words, actually, one letter at a time. And in order to do that, I'm not going to go, we would say for letter in guess. But then we'd have to look up the same position in the other one. So I'm actually just going to get a number. So I'm going to get to count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. However many numbers we have in our list by going for I in range word again. Just so we get all those numbers, and it will help us count through the word. Okay, and then I'm going to get the guess letter. Just going to get the guess that we got in at the top. It's going to be I. We're going to get the I letter of that word, and we also want to get the answer letter. And we're going to get answer. Okay, so we've got our 2 pieces of data. So we had some examples. Let's say that our answer is codes again. Then we had our guess, which is fine. So we would count through one at a time. 0 would be C and S. Then in the other order, so that would be in this order. So we'd get S and C, then P and O, then I and D, then N and E, and then E and S, one at a time, counting through the words. Okay, so now that we have our piece of information, we can compare the answers, compare the 2 letters and see if they're the same. And it's fairly simple. If they are the same letter, then we want to add a green love heart to our list. imported something when we accidentally added that line there. Okay. So if guess letter equals answer letter, then we want to go to that same position in our list. So luckily we have this I. So we're counting through whatever position we are at in the list. And we're going to set output that position to be, well, I haven't given you the love hearts yet. So I'm going to chuck these in at the top here. So just jumping to the top of our code, got these beautiful love hearts I've prepared earlier. And I'm just, using this syntax here, just the convention of making them uppercase, just so we know that they're constants. We're not going to be changing the green love heart to anything else any other time. So we're just going to, and then we can just use these inside of our functions because of the way that Python scoping works. So now we have that. Let's then give it a test, I reckon. So let's test our function just to see that it's putting, let's spell color first correctly. Color result, and then we can put in 2 words. Actually, let's put these out here. We'll get answer equal to codes, and then we'll have guess equal to spoon. Okay. And we're going to put these in the correct order, which is guess answer. And then we're going to print this out. Let's see what we get. I didn't return anything. So let's return something from our function first. So I'm going to return, I could return just the list, but we don't really want the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join the list together. So I'm going to join the 5 love hearts potentially that we have with the space, I think, with the space there. So we're going to say join the list together, the output, and return it. And then we can print it out. Let's see how it goes. Interesting. Let's see. Why is it not liking us today? Expected string and found none type. Of course, let's not join it together for now because we haven't actually put all of our things in. So it's trying to join things that are none, which does not join together well. So I'm just going to get to print here, actually, print out the output. Just so we can see how we're going so far. Interesting. Got output. Why have none of our things turned into green love hearts? I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, let's start by printing out our guess letter and our answer letter. And then see how we go. Of course, I haven't put any of the things in the correct spot. Let's just start by having things in the correct spot. There we go. We get 5 love hearts. If we do cause, we get, there we go. There we go. Okay, so it definitely works if you give it a good test to start off with. Okay, let's move on to the yellow letters. So we can go through and we can check that something is in the word quite easily. So we can do just stepping through the word, stepping through our guess and just saying, is this letter in the word? But as we remembered, we can't just say is something in the word because if there's if we said something like spoon, it has 2 O's and it, codes only has 1 O. So if we asked, is O in the word, it would make both of those yellow. So we need to do 2 things. We need to make sure we don't turn our yellow ones green. Our green ones to be yellow. For instance, here, we don't want to turn this O to be yellow because if it was to be matching, and we don't want to color all of them in if they are repeated. We just want to color in the correct amount. So we're going to need a couple of things here. Firstly, we're going to need a list of all the letters that are in there. So I could start by saying, doing the basic logic of, is this letter in the string? Is I in right. And that would work, except for these more difficult cases. So I'm actually going to turn this, our answer word, into a list. That way we can actually remove things once we kind of tick them off with our yellow coloring. Because when we go through our word in Wordle, we just want the first incorrectly placed letter to be yellow. So I'm going to start up here by making a answer letters remaining. Okay, and we're going to, it's going to be a list, but I'm just going to use this nice Python thing where we can just say list and we can just take answer, and it's going to make a list of all, turn it into a list. So if, you know, cat might become cat. So it just will turn it into that for us, which is fantastic. And just what we need in this occasion. Python has a lot of fun tips and tricks for these kinds of string operations. Okay, so now we have the letters that we need to tick off as we go through. And then when we want to, let's put in a comment for when we're doing our yellow. Do the yellow squares. Okay, so now we want to just go through the guess letters because we don't actually care about the placement in the answer word. In fact, we don't care about the answer word anymore at all. All we care about is answer letters remaining because that tells us which things we haven't used already when we've done our coloring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start by doing another for loop, but we're going to use another cool Python tip, which is enumerate. So I can loop through the guess and I can get the position of each of the each of the letters as I go through if I use enumerate, which is super useful because we both want the position because we're going to need what position it is when we want to color the correct position in our list, but we also want to have on hand the guess letter. So this saves us a line of code having to get the guess letter out of the guess word and just gives it to us neatly. So we've now got both this position and the guess letter. And we want to now check if, firstly, we want to check that the spot that we are coloring isn't already green because we don't want to overwrite that coloring. So we're going to say output I equals none. So we haven't put anything in here yet. And also, if the letter that we're looking at, guess letter, is still is in the list of answer letters remaining, then we want to make it yellow. If it's not, you know, if it's already green, or if the letter's not in the word at all, we don't want it. We don't care about this letter for the time being. So if this is the case, we're going to say output I. We're going to make it yellow using our beautiful yellow love heart we grabbed earlier. And then we're going to remove that letter from our answer letter remaining list. So if we've just colored in an O, then we want to make sure we don't color in any extra O's later. If we had the word spoon, for instance. So we're going to answer letters remaining, dot, remove. And then we can just give it a letter that we want to remove, which is guess letter. Okay, and I'm also going to grab this and we're going to put it in our green section because we also don't want to leave the green letters that we've already colored green in there to get colored up later. So that's also called guess letter. So we can just paste that in right there. And let's give that a run and see how it goes now. Interesting. Let's get some debugging going on here because it says that our guess letter is not in our list of letters that we've just used. Okay, so where is our answer letters remaining? Let's start by printing this. And then we're also going to print guess letter as well as, yeah, let's just do that for now. It's doing a bunch of extra letters. Okay, so That's interesting. So it says codes. That's our guess. Okay, and then we're getting at the issue where we're doing some extra letters. Why is it doing it again? Let's find out. Okay, so let's print out, just for some peace of mind, print out here the letters that we have currently for guess. So grab that. Print out guess. Because maybe guess has just become something completely different. Okay, so it's definitely cause, but the E is not available. Possibly because it's already gone here. So we've got E's in both, but okay, I think that what we're going to do... I've missed a chunk of our code. So we need to say, and guess letter in answers remaining. Don't know how I've missed that one. But yes, we got to have two complete things on either side. What was happening just here is it was just checking, and guess letter exists. Guess letters remaining exists. Answer get letters remaining exists, sorry. And then it was trying to do this line, and E doesn't exist, so it was trying to remove E, which was already moved up here. So that's what's going on there. Fingers crossed now it's all working. Here we go. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we've got a lot of green love hearts going on. Why are you all green is the next question. So, very interesting. Okay, let's print out what we had up here. So we're going to print out the output here, and then it prints out again there. Okay. Is it because I have everything is the same? Everything is matching. We don't have anything in the wrong spot. So we're going to say scoot and was. There we go. This will be better. So S, C, in the wrong spot, so it's O. Let's try something that has things that are in both the wrong spot and in the right spot. These don't actually have to be real words either. So let's go with swords. So it's actually a real word. Somehow I managed to think of one off the top of my head. So is that everything that we want? So yes, S is good. O is good, but it doesn't do the second O. Well, we have two O's, but it doesn't do the second S in this word here. So that's looking good. It's looking like we're doing all of our rules and not overriding our greens as well. So that's great. There's only one little bit less to do for our coloring, which is to make everything that's remaining not be none. Instead, we want it to be black love hearts. Okay, so now we can just say for I color in enumerate output. So we're just going to grab everything, give it a number for what position it is, and then also grab the actual color because we need to check what it is. And we're going to say if color equals none, then we need to give it a color. And so we're going to do output, the spot we're at is equal to black. Okay, cool. And now we can have this can come back. We can get rid of some of these debuggings. Introduced a syntax error in that removal. There we go. Let's properly remove that line and this line. And then we're going to give it a run down here. It's going to run it with these two inputs and outputs. Or is it? We missed a none. Very interesting. Okay. Let's print out what we have. It's not the part I imagined having issues in. But anyway, this is the joy of live coding. The demigods may or may not shine upon you on any given day. But it's the fun of coding is figuring all of this stuff out. So let's print out our output and see what we've got going on. It's got a lot of nuns going on there. What have you done? Got our output. We've gone through it. we've got each thing in it. We've checked if the color is none. We would think that we've now set them to be black, equal to black. So we didn't actually set them. There we go. Okay. All the tiny little errors that are very easy to spot when I'm teaching kids, but apparently difficult to spot on live stream. But that's fine. So now we have something that we can give different colors, different words to, and see what it says. I've used color here without a U just because, there's 5 letters. But, you might want to build your own Wordle where it doesn't include these U-less words like color and humor and other things that have been cropping up in real Wordle. So great. We now have our word colorer, and that's fantastic. So let's jump on to actually getting the words that we want to color. So what we're going to do next is actually jump back to the slides. So we've got words and answer lists. So you might want to make, who knows what you want to make? Maybe you want to make something in another language. You want to make some, a fantastically colorful one like Queerdle here. Maybe you want to do, if you played Loodle, you can, do that. Obviously not going to show an example of that one here. And maybe, Taylor Swift isn't your favorite like she is mine. You want to do a completely different one. Maybe you want a Backstreet Boys themed Wordle game there. Or you just want to change color to be color and have maybe 6-letter words so you can have color with a U. So we're going to jump to getting that word list next. Okay, so we're going to make a new file because we really only need to get the word list once to build it and store it in a file. So I've got a whole file just for making the word list. And there's a few different ways that you might want to do it. So I'm going to call this make word list. And then when we're done with it, it's going to just save our words in a text file and we can just access them whenever we want to. So we don't need this to be an actual game file. So one thing you might want to do is just use the word list available on your computer. So I'm on a Mac and you have a file called words, dict words. So they're just there and you could grab it and make whatever you want with that. So maybe you just want to strip out all the 9-letter words and you could do that. So I'm going to show you how I would make that into a 5-letter word collection. So I'm going to make a list of allowed words. And then we can use with open. So this is a good way for opening files which you want to read or write to in Python, because if you use with open, it's going to automatically close it at the end, which means your files won't get locked if your program crashes, for instance. So I'm just going to grab our path. So this is where the dict file lives on Mac. I'm just going to call it F because it's just our file handler. So it's our file object. So I'm going to go for line in F. I'm going to take off the new line character on the end using strip. So there'll be an enter at the end of each line. I don't want that. So I'm going to remove it. And I'm going to say if the word is 5 length, the word length is 5, and the word isn't, the first letter of the word isn't capitalized because there's some capitalized proper nouns in there. So I'm going to use is upper, which tells you if the word is capitalized or not, if that letter is capitalized or not. Then let's make this say word. Okay, so then we're going to add it to our list of allowed words. We're going to append it, which is add to the end of the list. I'm going to add word. And then we could write that out to a new file. So we're going to use with again, because that one will automatically close when we leave this indented block. And we're going to open, I'm going to call it words 5, because they're all 5-letter words. I'm going to call it text file. And I'm going to give it the W flag, which says, I want to be able to write to this file. And if you don't give it that, it will just be a read-only file by default. So we can now output. I'm going to call it the output file. I could call it F again because we don't need that variable anymore. But here's what we're going with this one. And I'm going to write lines. You're going to join everything together. As we saw previously, you can use join to join the items of your list. I'm going to join them together with the new line character. I'm going to join all of our allowed words. Well, it should have been called words, but I didn't do that, and I'm just going to leave it like that. Maybe there's things in here where you can quickly re-change it, but we're going to be going from here in a second. So I'm just going to leave it as is. So I'm going to make local list and call that function, and then in a second we should see a file appear. Here we go. Now we've got our 5-letter words. They're all lowercase, non-proper nouns there. So that's one thing that you could do. Another thing you could do is you could go to one of your favorite word games on the internet and you could borrow their thing from the source code. So you might, right click, inspect source code and just go digging around to borrow their list of words, which, don't steal things and plagiarize things and then monetize them. Don't use them for commercial gain. I'm not here to promote that. I'm here to promote you doing fun things with coding for your own fun, and maybe you're going to teach somebody else to code, and that'd be really cool too. But yeah, you could do that. So I've got some words that I've borrowed from elsewhere, and made some changes to. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it allowed words.txt and grab them. And the thing is, some of these sites, they have their 2 lists of words in 2 piles. So they've got all the ones that are allowed but won't ever be accepted, and then they've got the ones that they're allowed words but they'll never be the answer, and then they've got the words that will be the answers one day. And they keep them in 2 separate piles, but those answer words aren't actually in the first list. So you need to join together the 2 lists, which is what I found out in making this video. Is like, why aren't these regular words in this list of things? So make sure if you're going to borrow something from some code that you check that words that are possible answers actually occur in the allowed words list. If not, make the union, join those 2 files together. So that's what I'm doing here to get our allowed words. And I'm also going to make another one, which is called answers. Answer words, we're going to call it .txt. And I'm actually going to grab a one that you might have seen before. Some of the words might look familiar. And I'm going to show you how to make it, so you can't accidentally see the answers if you're borrowing them. So let's grab... Got a lot of word files going on here. Allowed, where are our answers? Raw answers. So you might have grabbed something that looks like this because you've grabbed it from some source code. Hot chip, you can use find and replace to get rid of all of these. You can also use tools like this to get rid of all those bits. But I'm just going to use find and replace because it's super fast to do that. Find this, and then we're going to just replace it with nothing. And we replace all of them. I'm going to do the same for this one here. Thanks VS Code. And now we have some things. But you might be like, oh my God, these are answers. And don't worry, I'm only showing the ones on the screen that you won't, they've already passed. But you might be like, what if I accidentally open it and I see the answers and then it's ruined? I might see tomorrow's answer. So what we're going to do, we're going to be back to our word list making code, and I'm going to make a version of this that is safe for looking at. I'm going to sort it so it's in alphabetical order, so you could see words that are potentially going to come up, but you don't know when they're going to come up, so it's going to be safe to us to have a peek at. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new function, sort answers, just for the safety, and we're going to make an answer list. And then we're going to do with open again. What did we call our file? We called it answer words. Okay, as F again, and then for each line in the file, we're going to grab the word. Let's grab that line, strip it, strip that new line character off. And then we're going to add it to answers. Make that an actual plural. Got append. Okay, so we're going to get all of our words just like we did before. And then we're going to, once that file is closed, we're going to sort the answers. Make it nice and safe. And then we're going to write it out again. I'm going to borrow this code because they need to see me type that out again. We're going to make a new file. It's going to be called safe answers. Now we can have a look at it and we're going to write out answers. Okay, great. So if we run that, we should see, did we see safe answers? Where is safe answers? Oh, we didn't call the function. So we're going to call this function. That's what I get for trying to make neat code with functions. I just forget to call them. Here we go. Safe answers. Everything's in alphabetical order. Now we don't have to worry about seeing tomorrow's answer. So that's okay. So now we have some word lists. So now it's time to move on to our game logic. So we've got our words. We've got a thing that does the coloring. And that's actually most of the stuff we need. But we do need the logic that makes it have 6 turns. And to get those inputs and then call our coloring function and tell you when you win or lose. So we're going to jump back to here. I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need that. It can be commented out. Okay. So first up, I'm going to start by choosing a random word for today. So we're going to say import random. I'm going to set the seed to be 1. And if we have time, maybe we'll do something with date time. So you could do something where you import date time and then get something that is related to today's date and then use that as the seed, so a number version of today's date. But for now, we'll leave that out. And then we're going to set the random seed to 1 for our seed that we just set there. Okay. So, now we've got a thing that'll choose a random word. Let's get today's answer. So, once again, we're going to open our file, which we've called safe answer. .txt as f. And we're going to split it all up again. Answers is equal to, use a trick, fancier way of doing it this time instead of doing one at a time, because I don't actually care about looking at each individual one. I just want them all there so I can make a choice of what is going to be our random word today. So I'm just going to grab it all and say, every time you see a new line, I want to split that up. And at the end, I want a list of all those things based around those new line splits. So we have a list of words now, and I can just do answer equals random dot choice. And I can just give it my answer list, and it will give me today's answer. So let's print that out first. Okay, let's give it a go. Today's answer is digit. Is it always the same? It's always going to be digit. So that's the answer we're working with today. So let's see how we go with that one. So now we have our answer. We also need to have access to our whole list of words, and we can just do the same thing for our allowed guesses. So I'm just going to borrow this code because if I type it out again, and we're going to use allowed words here. We're going to grab all our allowed words, split it up into allowed words, another list, which we're going to check every time somebody makes a guess before letting them actually, see the answer. We'll see if that's an allowed word to use in our game or something they've just made up. Okay, so next up, we're going to want to run our game for 6 turns. So for iron range 6, you might want 10 turns. You could, let's do something, more professional so we don't have random numbers in here. So for 6 turns, we want to start by asking for the guess. So we're going to say, what's your guess? Or enter a word. Enter a word. And then we're going to lower that because they might write something in capital letters. They might have just the first letter capitalized, but we don't want to have to deal with that. So we're just going to get rid of all the capitals and turn them into lowercase using dot lower, which is a really convenient way of just making everything lowercase. So next up, we're going to say, hey, we want to make sure that this is actually a word. So if the guess isn't a word, we're going to ask them to do it again. So while guess not in allowed words, so if it's not in there, as long as it's not in there, we're going to keep asking them, telling them, hey, that's not a word in our word list. That's not in our word list. And then we're going to get them to guess again. So we're going to grab this line of code again and make them do it again until they get it right. Okay, cool. So let's give that a run. So it says we need to enter a word, scout. Let's try something that's not a word, which is just this. That's not our word list. Keeps asking us until we say something that is a word. Traps. Okay, great, cool. So now let's make it actually do something with the words that we've just got. So for our game, so this is our get, ask for guess. This is our guess entry section. Then we want to create the thing that they actually view. And we've got our colorizer up here that we already coded. So we're going to grab that. We've got the guess and the answer for today. And we could just get that and print out the result. So let's start by doing that. So you need to stop this running first. Okay, so let's try some words again. Okay, so it starts printing some stuff out. We've got some debugging left in here, I think. So let's get rid of that first. Okay, we don't want that anymore. Absolutely not. We don't want that anymore either. Okay, let's give that another go. Okay, scout. Okay, so we are still printing out. One more debugging. Which is, we don't need this one either. Okay, but we can see that if we run it, it doesn't actually tell us our information of what our guess was. So we've got it just here, which is fine, but it kind of doesn't map up to the letters as well. So we can't, if we had, something else, then it would be hard to say, especially if you had a longer word, then it'd be hard to tell what letters are the correct positions. So we're going to make what I'm going to call a view, which is just going to be, we want to have the letters. So it might be like colds. And then we want to have our love hearts print underneath that. So we're going to print out our input like that. And then we're going to print out our colored result underneath. So let's join together our guess with some spaces. So we get that nice spread out look because we need to put the spaces in there because our love hearts take up 2 character spaces. So I'm going to join, and I want to print them all in uppercase because that's kind of how Wordle looks and all the games look. So let's do that as well. And I'd love to but I need to put the spaces in. So we need it to be a list, but then we also want each item to be uppercase. So what we're going to do first is we're going to set it to uppercase. Then we're going to turn our uppercase word into a list so we can join it back together with spaces in between it. So what it's going to look like is we want to join our list. Our list is made up of guess, and each of those is in uppercase now. So take guess, make it uppercase. Then, as we said before, you can use a list to turn a string into a list. And then we're going to put it right back into a string using joining together with our dashes. So let's print that out as well. Okay, cool. Let's stop that running. Okay, spoon. Let's see if our case things work. Goods. Great, cool. Okay, and if we do digit, it wins. But it doesn't stop yet. So we actually need to make it finish the game. So what we're going to do next is say if guess is the answer, then we're going to want to stop playing the game rather than making people keep guessing. We're going to print out, you did it. Let's get some more emojis in here because they're an important part of Wordle culture, I think. And then we're going to break. So that means we're going to leave this loop without finishing it off. So that means we've printed out our winning state. But what happens if we don't win in the 6 turns? If we put something here at the end that says print, you lose. The problem is that everyone's going to see that because it would finish this loop, and then whether they won or not, it would go on to the next bit of code, which would be print, you lose. So I'm going to show you what's called an else for a for loop. So just like with if statements, you can also use else, but this only happens if you finish the loop without using a break. So if you escape the loop, it just skips to the end and it skips past the else. But in this case, if we haven't broken out of the loop, we want to print the message that you lose because you used up all of your turns without breaking out of the loop. So we say you lose, and then we're going to print out the answer. Print. I'm going to use an F string, which means you can put your variables inside. So you're going to put F at the start, say answer was, and then put the curly brackets. And then whatever you put in the curly brackets will show in the middle of your string. It makes it easy to write sentences. Okay, cool. So let's stop this running. And let's just do really bad at the game. We're just guessing spoon all the time, which is not a good approach to playing Wordle. And we say you lose, the answer was digit. However, if we do, let's say, spoon for the first one, and then we're going to do digit for the second one, it says you did it. So that's our whole game logic there. Cool. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the Python-y fun stuff we've done so far. But what do we have time left for in our session? Updating the screen. Yeah, let's do one more small one before we wrap up for this evening. So at the moment, we have this long chain of things, which is like hard to keep track of because you have to keep looking back at what you had previously. It's got all these things in between. If you made some mistakes and put in words that weren't correct, then they'd also all be on the screen. So I would like to add a refreshing thing. So it just shows you all the important information. So more like Wordle, how you have everything displayed, just the information that you need. I've just noticed that our spoon and our love hearts don't really line up. So I'm going to add another space in here, and hopefully that's going to be better. So we're going to go codes. Better. Great. We can't get these centered because obviously you can't get in the middle of the two characters. And then, so what we're going to do, a quick little one for the screen clearing. I'm going to make a new function at the top. I'm going to call it def clear screen. Doesn't take any arguments. We just want to be able to call this thing. And I'm going to import just above it OS. So it's an operating system function. Okay, so I'm going to grab some code because I grabbed this from the internet, which is a great way to learn how to do cool stuff. So this is saying using the OS system, clear it. And you need to use a different keyword based on if you're on Windows or on Mac. I'm on Mac, so I'm using NT. Or maybe no, it's clear if I'm on Mac. It's CLS if you're on Windows. I just grabbed this from the internet. Can I say exactly how it works? Not really, but it's really fun, so we're going to use it today. And we've got our clear screen function now. So to make sure we keep track of the information we want, we need to have a we're currently just printing out these two things, but I'm going to make a thing that, well, let's start off by clearing the screen. And then I'm also going to make a thing called view, which is just going to be the empty list. And then each time, instead of just printing these out, I'm going to add them to view. I'm going to use plus equals, which is the same as just saying, tack this on the end. You could use plus equals if you're using variables, if you wanted to increment them by 1, but with strings, they just add something to the end of it. So, and then I'm going to print out view each time. Print view out. And then we want to, when you get up, so we're going to clear the screen just before we print the view, because we only want to see the information that we need, which is not the word you just entered, because you already have that information inside of your love heart beautiful output here. So let's see if this is everything we need. Let's stop this running, then run it. Okay, so we're going to say hello. I've got a new line, so let's also add a new line in between them, because the print automatically adds the new line for us. The new line here too. And I'm also going to print, I'm going to add, let's add 2 new lines, just so there's a gap between each of our entries. Okay, so let's run it again. We didn't add a plus. Okay, here we go. Here, hello. I'm going to write codes. I'm going to write times. So we can see now that it only has the information that we want here, not all the enter a word stuff that we had before. And we might say digit. And then we just get all of this at the end and we say, you did it. So that's looking great. And that looks like a game of Wordle to me. And you could do this for any variation. Maybe there's a niche market that you can see that needs to be filled. But yeah, so there's other things you could obviously add, like we didn't get to adding a keyboard, which would be really useful. And I would love to use a dictionary to add that kind of keyboard functionality to show what letters are matching to which color so far. Because doing this, I could, just managed to not be able to remember anything when I was running it in the command line. Or maybe you want to make it be playable on hard mode, or the different kind of new mode that you've invented. So yeah, there's lots of different stuff you can add on to that base game. Make sure you take a look at the website. It's all on reneenoble.com. If you look in the top at Microsoft Talks, there's the What in the Wordle series. You can get the code from today, which I'll push to GitHub. You can also see some awesome Python modules on Microsoft Learn and some documentation, which is super useful. And register for next week, because we'll be looking at Matplotlib, Jupyter Notebooks, more cool Python tips. I hope you enjoyed all the different little Python bits and pieces that we had on today. And yeah, next week coming up, we've got first words. We're using Python data science to figure out our own best words. We'll learn about Jupyter Notebooks and Matplotlib and make some cool graphs to really, visualize the information we're extracting using data science. And think about how our first words set us up for our second and the rest of our game. So yeah, but before then, make sure you check out this. I've got an awesome panel coming up for International Women's Day. Some super fantastic Australian people all passionate about women in tech and creating awesome communities and cultures in workplaces for making sure we have, a more inclusive and diverse world. So I hope you also sign up for that. There's another link up here, also on reneenoble.com if you want to have a look and register. And I hope to see you in the comments because it is a fireside chat, so we will be answering your questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Renee. I've put...
Lost audio from Michael. Hopefully get him back. You can just hang out and look at this screen for the time being. But yes, all thank you so much for coming along. It's been fantastic having you all here. I really hope to see you back next week. Please come along with your first word or some of your favorite first words. I like to use lots of different first words, a different first word every day, which is, I think it's just, diversity, and I don't feel like I'm starting at the same place every day. But some people are really, gung-ho on having the same first word every day, and it really works well for them. So yeah, I hope you come along and work out what the best first word is for you. I don't know if we're getting Michael back. We'll just hang out. Anybody have any questions in the comments until Michael can come and say goodbye? I don't know. Well, I don't know if Michael's coming back, and I don't have the ability to leave the stream. So please let me know your favorite first words in the comments while we hang out and wait for Michael, who has the admin access, to click end stream for us. Otherwise, they're just going to hang out here live on camera. Or, we could do some more coding. Do I have a favorite variant that I've seen? That's a great question, Jack. There are a lot of great variants. Every day I'm playing like 7 different variants, basically. I'm playing, what am I playing? Nerdle, the maths one. That's a great one. I'm also playing Quadrille, where you've got 4 Wordles at the same time. Octordle. I've even done the one with 16. I can't remember how to say that word. Wordle is a good one, but I'm not that good at geography. So yeah, there's a lot of different ones. And Crosswordle, which I find to be the most difficult one, where you've got one and the other, and they're related. So it might be something like maple syrup or common sense that you are completing. But yeah, I find that one to be the trickiest one. Michael's back, so we can end the stream. But thank you, Jack. Oh, we've got Jack saying his favorite starting word is tired. Thank you for chiming in for your favorite starting word.
As you would expect, my computer shut down the minute I was about to close out. So love technology. But thank you, Renee, again for a wonderful session. You're a superstar. Check out all the links. I'm sure Renee's talked to it while I was trying to get things booted back up. But we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.